It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant Pride.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Hello, everybody, and happy Tuesday. Welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants. I am John Schmeelk, joined by my buddy Marc Malusis here in the Hackensack Marine Health Podcast Studio. Keep getting better. Moose, good to see you, my friend.
John, how are you? Good to be here. Good to see you as well. Post-NFL Combine, free agency gets going next week, but
were you locked
more
in?
Weather in the area, no doubt.
Locked into the Underwear Olympics over the weekend?
Yes, I was. It was I mean, listen.
I like it. It's fun.
It's enjoyable. It is. As we've come to learn, it's more enjoyable for some than it is for others. But it was enjoyable. And I think you learn a little something. It's all part of the draft process, and I think we've become, just as an audience to the National Football League, and this is why it makes the NFL king, is that, they're better than any of the other three major sports, is that they grab you every single month to events to pay attention to. And, I was talking about this the other day. I mean, I remember when nobody paid attention to the NFL Scouting Combine. I mean, it wasn't covered the way that it is covered now. And I think, the advancement and what you saw from the NFL Network kind of bring it into 4A, the focus on college football, the amount of, you start to kind of get taken behind, the closed doors a little bit, and you learn a little something to where, information is king. And I think there are a lot of NFL fans that really kind of lean into it and love watching it because they love their sport, they love their teams, and they love to see exactly where some of their favorite college players end up landing.
Yeah, and I think it gives NFL fans two things: hope, and the ability to speculate, which are two things that fans really like to do the most, right? You have hope. All right, well, maybe we can get this great player. You can turn our franchise around. And the second best part of it is that since nobody has any clue what's going to happen, you can come up with all these cockamamie theories about how you get this guy, how you get this guy. We do this trade, we do that, we do this.
Throw darts up against the wall.
It's so much fun.
Yeah, well, it's true, and you got to be careful in terms of what you believe that's being thrown out there, what's being reported, because there are teams that are going to say stuff or put stuff out there because they want that to be out there and they want that to be the narrative. Not necessarily a case of exactly what they're thinking internally. Sometimes what they're thinking internally does come out, but it gets kind of clouded or muddied a little bit. So there's a lot of things that come into it. We all love the NFL draft. It's fantastic, the coverage of it, the fact that it's a 3-day event. It used to be just on, over the weekend. It used to be all day Saturday, and then you used to have the back like 4 or 5 rounds on Sunday, when it was held at, Radio City Music Hall.
Saturday, Radio City Music Hall, 12 noon.
Oh, it was crazy. It was great. I mean, it was unbelievable. And that used to go to like 8 o'clock at night. It would be like the first 2 rounds. The first round used to take like 6 hours.
Yeah, it did.
Remember that?
It was like 30 minutes between picks.
Right. You'd come back at like 5:30 in the afternoon, and they were still not even through like the first round after you saw your team selected if they had a bad year the year before. So,
and they would put the radio set up. So if you guys, if you guys know what Radio City Music Hall is, because I went probably for fan. From 2004 to 2007, I think I went to like 4 drafts in a row. So basically, folks, if you know what Radio City Music Hall is like, you have like in any auditorium, you have the 2 aisles kind of in the middle, and then you have the aisles against the walls, right? How you get your seats. So they would basically just put tables against the wall on the aisle against the seat close to the stage. And that's where they put, like, Westwood One did their coverage. Eventually, Sirius came in, did their stuff. And usually Doggy was there and for his Saturday morning show.
Saturday morning show, no doubt.
And that's just kind of, it was so small. It was so small, but it was great.
And now it's complete. Oh, it was awesome. And then you had the fan reaction, and obviously the local feel, the Jets and the Giant fan reacting to who was being selected, and the emotion that he got there. Now it's turned into like just an amazing spectacle, right? And we're going to see it out in Pittsburgh this year.
Guys on boats at the Bellagio.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's unbelievable. It really is. So I mean, there's a lot to it, and those that are lucky enough to be invited, if you're have got that first round grade and you're in that green room and you're sitting there waiting to be drafted. It's just an amazing event. And for all those that end up getting drafted, whether it be the first round or whether it be round 7, end up being the last pick, right? Mr. Irrelevant. We've seen how it turned out for Brock Purdy out there in San Francisco. You're living your lifelong dream. You've dedicated your life to it. all the hard work, all the effort, family, friends, everyone. It takes a village to get to this point in time, and this is where your dream starts to become a reality, and then the real work begins.
All right, so we're going to try to start to wrap our combine coverage today.
Yeah.
You can go look at yesterday's Big Blue Kickoff with Paul and Matt. They talked a bunch about it. My Giants Huddle podcast yesterday did a little roundtable review. That's there. Draft season is going to go up today. So a lot from me and the guys on the combine. If you want that content, it's out there. Go find it. But Moose, I want to give you a chance to give your takeaways, and then we're going to kind of do our transition over the free agency, which, by the way, starts in around 5 days.
Yeah, 5 days. NFL new league year. I mean, it's going to be awesome with free agency. And the one thing about an NFL free agency, similar to what you see in other leagues outside of Major League Baseball, where it's a slow drip and a trickle. When you look at the MLB offseason, NFL free agency, it goes pretty quick.
Tidal wave.
I mean, it really is. And so you're looking at teams that have got a lot of work to do in terms of whether it be salary cap work and pinpointing needs, who they want to target, who's going to fit, whether it be scheme or whether, and what's the value you're going to be able to place on those players. So free agency is fantastic, but I thought the combine was entertaining. I mean, listen, I think there are things that come out of it where you solidify yourself. Sonny Styles certainly did with the athletic kind of freak show that he put on. The linebacker coming out of Ohio State is potentially being a top 5 draft choice. Jeremiah Love. I mean, you talk to a number of people around the National Football League that they believe, John, that Love, regardless of position, might be the best prospect in this NFL draft.
I believe that.
And we've talked about it before, John. And when I was doing the show when you were at the Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, and I was doing the show with Paul, and you mentioned in terms of going through this draft that if you took picks 1 through 8 in this draft, in all likelihood, in most years, they'd probably be between 8 and 15, right? I think if you had the notion that, this was going to be more of a defensive strength of a draft, I think that was solidified over the weekend out at the NFL Scouting Combine. For those that did partake, and when you're looking at terms of the skill sets, whether it be edge rusher, whether it be off-ball linebacker, whether it be cornerback, everything like that, that's kind of the strength of this draft outside of the quarterbacks, and we can look at the wide receivers, but that's pretty much predominantly in terms of the strength. I think you saw what, you feel bad for a kid like Bain coming out of Miami who, when you look at his skill set and you look at how productive he was for Cristobal down there with the Miami Hurricanes, that his arms only measured out at 30 7/8, which is going to be a red flag for a lot of teams. Due to the leverage angle, due to the fact that offensive lineman, the goal for you as an offensive tackle is to get your hands on the edge rusher as quickly as possible. Now, you look at his tape, and he was unbelievably productive.
Oh, he's tossing people left and right.
Right, but you look at it where it's an outlier. There's been not a lot of guys, if any, that have come up. Then you have to come up with a game plan and say, well, if we do address it, how far down the draft board does he drop, right? And then what's the game plan in order to use him? How do we get him in space to where he is not going to be out-leveraged when he's going up against offensive tackles, conceivably, in order to play to his strengths as a player?
No, look, I'm with you. I still think he's a top 10 pick. I think it'd be really silly if he doesn't go in the top 10, just because his strength and his ability to move people. You could even pass rush him from inside on third down if you want to put him a defensive tackle. I think he'd be great in there. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think it's telling that 4 of the 5 top wide receivers didn't run 40s.
Yeah.
I think that kind of tells you, but trust me, if they were really fast, they would have ran. That's generally how it goes. Guys don't skip running if they're going to run really fast. So I think that's
Tate
telling.
With a 4.54.
Yeah, and by the way, ran it twice.
Yeah, same number.
Same number twice, and he didn't do either jump. And what does that tell you? That means they would not have been very good. So how fast is he really? He came in under 200 pounds, just 6'2". Can you justify taking a 6'2", under 200-pound receiver that's a 4.5 guy at 5th overall?
Right, and then
it's a tough sell.
And then we get into the conversation in terms of when you're playing opposite on the same field of just a freaky wide receiver at Ohio State in Jeremiah Smith. I mean, then you say, well, how much does that make your job easier, right? And where do you slot Tate in? Or you want to say, well, there's a difference, and there is, between track speed and game speed, right? So there have been guys before that have not run particularly well, but they've been really, really productive. Look at Anquan Bolden. Anquan Bolden, I think, ran a 4.7. mean, and he came into the National Football League, and I understand everyone's a little, and he was a bigger wide receiver.
He was like 220, exactly right.
Bigger wide receiver, more physical. But the point being is that, the question is, can you get separation? How's your route running, right? Are you able to go out there and take advantage, even though you might not have ridiculous speed?
And he is good at all those things.
Yeah, he is great at all those things. But there's no doubt that that's going to be a conversation point in NFL draft rooms and after this post-combine to see, and he's going to try and improve his 40 time come his pro day, because 4.54, that's going to be something that teams are going to pinpoint in terms of saying that's a concern when you're looking at tape moving forward.
And look, and that's what I'm saying. And you made the point, and I'll stick to it. That's why in a normal draft, he's picked 15th.
Right.
And then that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. He's still a really good player. I'm not changing my grade on him based on what he ran, but that's why when I said the guys that are going to pick 5th, 6th, 7th this year usually getting picked 12th, 13th, 14th, that's the type of thing I'm talking about. And even like the top corner, Mansour Delane, he did not run. Jermon McCoy, but maybe the second corner in the draft. He said he's not ready to come back from that ACL injury that happened over a year ago. Jordan Tyson, who had a hamstring back in November, he said he's not ready. He's had injury problems. That's going to raise another red flag. So just go up and down the list, Moose, and I think this is going to be a very unpredictable, and I'll leave it here. This, to me, is going to be an unpredictable draft. When you don't have premium guys at premium positions at the top, a running back can go 2, a safety can go 3. It's going to be a flavor draft. What do you need? I think team needs are going to be huge in this, right? Teams are going to probably focus a little bit more on need because you don't have those elite players at
especially
the elite
when
positions.
There's not a great separation between the players.
Exactly right. So I think from the top of the draft, and then with only maybe 15 or 16 true first-round players, maybe less depending on the team you talk to, I think picks 20 to 32 are going to be bonkers, where you have no idea who's going to go. So we're going to sit here talking about, what should the Giants do with 37? We have no idea what players are going to be sitting there at 37 with the Giants.
Right, and really when you look at it, the draft begins at 2 with the Jets, because Mendoza is going to go number 1 overall to the Vegas Raiders unless something strangely happens. And then,
do you think edge for the Jets at 2? Is that your thought?
I would imagine, especially after the trade of Jermaine Johnson down to Tennessee to go get Sweat.
I agree.
Right,
Daly, Bain, Reese, one of those 3.
One of those guys, right. Yeah,
I mean,
and I think in all likelihood, it's probably going to be Bailey coming out of Texas Tech. I mean, I think that's probably going to be the apple of the eye because he solidified himself this past weekend out in Indianapolis. I don't know, and I don't disagree with you about Bain in terms of looking at his production, and sometimes there are guys that are just outliers, right? But can you draft a guy with that kind of physical limitation conceivably with the 2nd overall draft choice? Because if you do, you better be right. Because if you're wrong, that's going to be a pick that comes back to haunt you, because people are going to look at it and say, well, why did you think that he had arms that were less than 31 inches? Why didn't you think that was going to be an issue in the National Football League?
I love the Bill Parcells quote. Once you start drafting outliers, you're going to have a team full of outliers.
Yeah, it's a great point. That's a good one. I love that. That's like a great Parcells quote.
It is. And he's like, look, that's why, can you do it here and there? Sure. Do you want to do that at 2nd overall?
Yeah,
probably not.
Right, and so you get into it. I'm curious. Like we chatted about Love before, right? I'm curious in terms of where we've seen the rejuvenation of the running back here the past couple years, right? Saquon a couple years ago with the Philadelphia Eagles. You saw Walker, the kind of game that he had in the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots, right? Now, they wouldn't have gotten there if Darnold doesn't have the NFC Championship game that he did against the Los Angeles Rams, but we've seen the revitalization of the running back. And sometimes, you look at it where teams are looking at a draft and saying to themselves, sometimes you don't necessarily have to overthink it. And I get there are going to be teams that say, I'm not going to draft a running back that high, but outside of his hand size, there's nothing not to like about Jeremiah Love.
He's very clean.
Very clean player. Mm-hmm. And he's a 3-down running back, and he can catch the ball coming out of the backfield. And you saw his game-breaking ability, and he runs with physicality, and he does have size, and he does run away from defensive backs. There's nothing not to like about him. I'm just curious in terms of what team convinces themselves of how high is too high when you're looking at Jeremiah Love. That's going to be a fascinating storyline to follow as we get closer and closer to draft day.
Yeah, I agree. I would be shocked if he got out of the top 10. That would be very surprised. I don't think he'll get to the Chiefs at 9. That's just the gut feeling that I have.
They would love him.
Oh, my gosh. That'd be unbelievable.
They would adore him. There is no doubt about it, especially with Mahomes coming off a torn ACL, that bad knee injury. When is Patrick going to be 100% back, even if he's there for game 1?
That would be a great fit. All right, let's jump to free agency here, Moose, very quickly before we get to your calls at 201-939-4513. I was about to give the FAN number from the show on Saturday. I had to stop myself. 201-939. Exactly right. 201-939-4513. I actually did a good job. I did not give this number when I was on FAN over the weekend.
Trust it. Sometimes I'm giving out my phone number, making an appointment. I start giving out the FAN number.
Well, you'll laugh at this. I don't think I ever told you the story. So this was probably around, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
When Russ was doing shows here.
Okay.
He started giving out his personal number on the air.
Is that? Are you
stopped
serious?
like halfway through. I swear to God. It was one
Did anybody call him?
No, I don't think he got all like 11 digits, but he got to like 6 or 7 digits.
Oh my God! Before he caught himself.
Yes, correct. And then he almost did it the second time, but he stopped at like digit 2 the second time, which was great. Oh, it was just hilarious.
Hey Russ, this is John and Wayne. I want to break down the Giants' offensive line as he's driving away.
You know where I can find some good babka, Russ? Yeah. All right, free agency moves. We've gone through a million times who the Giants free agents are. We know who they are. We don't have to do that again. But I think when I was kind of going through the lists this morning and I was kind of trying to really, I've looked at them before. I really kind of did more of a deep dive. And what I don't like about it is that the 3 spots where the Giants have their top 3 free agents, offensive tackle, wide receiver, and cornerback, those are probably 3 of the more shallow spots in free agency this year, and it makes sense, right? They're 3 premium positions,
right?
Offensive tackle, wide receiver, corner, and especially at offensive tackle. I mean, you're looking at, where's my list here? I'll give you the guys at the top of the list. This is off of Bill Barnwell's list on ESPN. I also used Greg Rosenthal's list off of NFL.com, and Greg's going to be on the John Soto podcast later in the week, by the way. But at offensive tackle, they basically have 6 guys. Braden Smith, who's kind of bumped back and forth between guard and tackle a little bit. Rasheed Walker, who's fine at left tackle for the Packers, but, you know, they're trying to replace him. It's not like he's the guy that they want out there.
Right.
Jermaine Luminor, Jonah Williams, who can't stay healthy. Jack Conklin, who might be closer to retirement than his prime years. Braxton Jones, who the Bears just literally replaced at left tackle this year with the draft pick. And then Trey Pipkins, who, again, the Chargers have been trying to replace at right tackle for years. So you're looking at 3, maybe 4 guys you would feel comfortable starting an offensive tackle. And guess what? Hate to tell you, there's more than 3 or 4 teams, Moose, that are looking for a starting quality offensive tackle out there in the National Football League. So that's why that market, I think, is going to be... I mean, just look at the trade that just happened, right? Titus Howard. Going to the Browns.
And then he got paid
$21 million a year extension.
Yeah. Can I ask you about it? What's your take on Vera Tucker?
Yeah, I know. I have in my guard section. I know he has played tackle before.
He has played tackle.
Yes. He's been hurt so much.
He has.
I think if you can get him on a bargain deal, I'm all in. I don't know what that cost. I think that is very much the cost of the contract and the level of the guarantees in the contract will dictate whether or not you can go in that direction.
And listen, there might be a team, I know there's been a lot of rumors out there about potentially Vegas. Vegas needs to improve that offensive line, that there might be a team that's willing to go above and beyond when you're looking at Elijah Vera Tucker. There's no doubting the skill set
he's great.
of him. When he's on the field, he's a really good player that can play, and you can move him all along the offensive line, whether it be in the interior at the guard spot, or obviously he's played left tackle in spots for the New York Jets as well. Vera Tucker would be interesting because I think it's a question of just where the marketplace is. But you're not wrong in terms of that. But that's a gamble because that's one where you could bring in AVT, whatever team it might be, right? And then all of a sudden he's banged up, hurt once again. And that's just the way it is, right? That his body can't hold up. He can't play the position. And he goes down to another significant injuries. And we're talking about significant injuries when you're looking at Elijah Vera Tucker.
Season enders.
Yeah, no doubt. So that's the gamble there. I was just curious your take on that. But in terms of the list, I mean, Conklin was really good when he was healthy. And before he got hit, suffered a myriad of different injuries. I mean, there was a point in time where the Cleveland Browns were defined by basically Myles Garrett and their offensive line, and Nick Chubb running the football. So Conklin was really, really good and a part of that offensive line. The problem is that version of Jack Conklin is years ago.
Correct. No, absolutely right. So Rasheed Walker, I think he's going to get a big deal. And I looked it up just so I had it in front of me, Moose. Last year, Dan Moore, and we've talked about this before, got a 4-year, $82 million contract.
Yeah.
As a, I would say, below average starting left tackle in the league, probably.
That was a bad deal.
And then Jalen Moore, who was a backup in San Francisco, got a 2-year, $30 million contract from the Chiefs. They were so desperate to bring in an offensive tackle they thought they could play.
Right. So let me ask you this. What do you think Illuminor gets?
I think that's the neighborhood you're looking at. 2 for 30.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that.
You don't think he gets a longer deal than that?
He's 31. I think he could.
Yeah.
Like with 3, let me put it this one. With a high-end 3 years, like $51 million deal, would that shock me? No, it would not shock me.
No, it would not stun me because I think there are teams out there that are desperate, right? And that's where you look at it. I'm not saying that the Giants, listen, I don't think you need to tear apart this offensive line, but the O-line this past season, John, and we talked about it Saturday mornings on WFAN, was good. I mean, was not the talking point that it had been for the better part of a decade, right? So that's where you have to be careful, but then you have to put a number on it, right? What do you think Marcus Bowe is, right? Have you seen enough from him?
That's a huge question.
I mean, have you seen enough from him to where you say to yourself, I feel comfortable as an organization to where he can solidify a spot on my offensive line in 2026?
And by the way, what if the front office that's carried over from last year thinks so, but what does John Harbaugh think? What does Mike Bloomgren think? Like, we don't know that. There's no way to know that.
No, you don't. You 100% don't know. And those are the conversations that are being had behind the scenes that
probably right now.
Yeah, no doubt, 100%. That we do not know, what the feel and what the vibe is, but. Then you have to say, okay, well, we'd like to bring Jermaine back, conceivably, right? Just speculating here, right?
I mean, John Harbaugh said that at his press conference at the Combine.
Right, we'd like to bring him back, but what's the value, right? If he gets blown away by another team that is just desperate to improve their offensive line, right? Like we were talking about, you mentioned before, Ashton Genty with the Vegas Raiders. Right, the Raiders went out there, drafted the stud out of Boise State that everybody loved, right? There was not an NFL team that had a knock on him. They had no offensive line. Mm-hmm. They couldn't block for him, right? Every time he touched the ball, he was basically getting hit 2-3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. So you look at Vegas, who is going to be drafting a young quarterback conceivably with the first overall draft choice, whether he starts game one or whether he doesn't. You have a high draft choice in Genty at running back. You would have to imagine that, when you're looking at Spytek and Brady out there in Vegas, that their big goal is going to be, well, we need to get this offensive line back to, they don't have to be the best line. They just can't be what we had in 2025 because that was non-competitive.
Right, and I guess then what I look at, Moose, and you kind of went this direction already.
And the point being is that they would be willing to overpay for offensive linemen.
100%, especially they have a lot of cap space, and there's only so many good players out there. You got to spend it somewhere.
Right.
You have to spend it somewhere. So if the Giants, if something like that happens and they can't bring Illuminor back, then you think, all right, well, what's my answer now? Is it Marcus Bowe?
Right.
I went through the other free agents. I don't think your answer's on that list.
I don't think it is either.
So then what? You're going to rely on the draft and you're going to start a rookie right tackle next year with the second-year quarterback? I don't know if I feel great about that either. So then that drives probably what you're willing to offer, right? And again, it all comes back to what you think of Bowe.
And with the timing of free agency and everything, what you don't want to have to do is, you've heard where you're going into a draft with a glaring need that you need to take care of.
Especially not at a position as important as right tackle.
Right. So that's one thing you don't want to have happen because then all of a sudden that's driving your decision making in the draft room instead of looking at and saying, well, we're looking to draft the best available player regardless of position, right? And John Harbaugh has talked about that before, right? Draft great players. The goal, if we stay at 5, draft a player conceivably that is going to be wearing a gold jacket at the end of their career. But you don't want to have it where you're going into that draft room thinking that we have to draft a tackle because we don't have a starting right tackle on the team right now.
No, absolutely right. And then let's jump to wide receiver here, Moose, where I don't know this. The franchise deadline's coming up, I think. Is that 3 o'clock this afternoon?
Yes.
3 o'clock, right? I think they're going to figure something out with him. But even if Alec Pierce hits free agency, once you get past him, you're looking at Romeo Doubs, who I think is a pretty solid guy. I think that's a decent option. I think he's going to get paid, though, too. Probably right in the neighborhood that Wanda Robinson will. Mike Evans, he's an older guy. I think he's going to want to try to latch on with a contender rather than a team that is picking in the top 5 of the draft. I think that makes sense from his perspective, right? Juwan Jennings, solid player. Deebo Samuel, a lot of injuries, solid player. Christian Kirk, Rashid Shaheed. But where I'm getting at, same thing with Illuminor. If you can't bring Wanda Robinson back, and let's say a team like the Titans, who again, Brian Dable, a lot of connections, they have a ton of cap space, they need receivers for Cam Ward. Let's say they throw the bank at Wanda Robinson and you can't match it, right? And he leaves. You still have question marks about Malik Neighbors. There's no way to know on March 10th when free agency's going on what his status is going to be at the start of the year. You might have an idea of how the recovery is going, but you don't know yet whether he's going to be ready. You have Darius Slayton here.
Yeah.
And who are your other receivers? So, like, then you have another hole, and the list that I just gave you is not a great list either.
Not a great list, right? But then maybe you evaluate or take a look at the trade market, right? Shaheed's an interesting one that that would intrigue me.
He is.
That if the Seahawks and Schneider aren't going to be able to pay everybody, right? But Shaheed is a guy that can help you in a lot of different ways, being the burner that he is at the wide receiver position. Obviously, we've seen him, whether it be New Orleans or whether it be Seattle, his impact on special teams as a return man as well. And listen, I don't disagree with the narrative about Mike Evans. I would imagine that he would want to go to a team that has an opportunity to win next year.
I feel the Bills are such a good
that would be
him.
No doubt. I mean, big play, red zone target. Big receiver, sure-handed receiver, has played through injuries as well. Is gonna be a Pro Football Hall of Famer when his career is all said and done. Made Johnny Manziel look good at Texas A&M and made him a high draft choice. So I mean, there's a lot that Mike Evans has done over the course of his career. So
he will have to consider the Tampa to Buffalo transition.
That's true.
A little bit of a different lifestyle.
I get that. I understand that. But you know what? With the kind of money the guys make in today's day and age, I'm sure you could deal with that, right? He's not out there with the shovel and the salt, dealing with the snowstorms up there in Buffalo. I would imagine that he wouldn't be, but
nice Canadian Goose winter coat.
Right, but you know what makes it easier? When you got Josh Allen throwing you the football. That makes it a little bit easier to deal with the cold weather and deal with the cold winters.
New stadium too up there.
Yeah, no doubt, 100%. So, but yeah, you're right in terms of that. But Shaheed would be one that would be interesting to me. Deebo Samuel, I think his best days are probably gone. I get concerned about where he is weight-wise. The hits that he's taken as a running back out there in San Francisco, which he had concerned about, the product and what you saw this past year with the Washington Commanders. So that would be my concern when you're looking at that. But it's not a great, you're right. I mean, it's not a great list when you're looking at wide receiver, which would, if you lose Illuminor and you lose Wan'Dale Robinson, then all of a sudden, what does that draft board look like for, Joe Shane, John Harbaugh, and everybody come NFL draft night?
Yeah, I'm going to get to the calls here, but it's not that much different at cornerback, Moose. You have Jamal Dean at the top of the list. He's going to get paid a lot of money. Jalen Watson, a 27-year-old free agent from the Chiefs. He's probably going to get paid a lot. And then you have Kobe Durant and Josh Jobe and Amik Robertson, Alante Taylor, Reek Woolen.
A lot of guys,
but nobody this is the kind of way I'll phrase it. A lot of these really good teams, they have a solid player, and they're like, all right, he's a solid corner, but we have a salary cap. We have to let to your point, you can't pay everybody for the Seahawks, right?
No doubt.
You have to let some guys go. He's a solid player. All right, I guess we could try to figure out where to place this guy in the draft. But you have other teams out there that are, like the Dallas Cowboys, for example, that had one of the worst secondaries in football last year, or the Commanders.
And they're moving to a 3-4, too.
Yeah, and the Commanders who struggled in the secondary last year, right? And they're like, oh, wow. That's a solid corner. We could use that guy, right? So you have the really good team that's like, all right, we'll try to get him on the cheap, and maybe we can squeeze him in. But then you got these other teams that are desperate, and they're like, all right, here's the bank, bro. We need you to be a solid corner for us. So that's why it's those three spots where the Giants have their three best free agents, how they balance the budget with replacing them if they leave. Can you afford to let them leave? That, to me, is the push and pull this year with the Giants at three pretty important positions, how they handle that part of their roster formation process.
And here's the issue for the Giants. All three are coming off good years.
Bingo. And two of them are coming off their rookie contracts.
Right. So that's the and as the moniker is in the National Football League, not for long, right? Guys are, even as much as they might love the organization that they were playing for, in the end, money's money. So if they get overwhelmed with a contract, they're going to leave.
Take it.
Right. So
and you can't blame them for that. And by the way, Jermaine Illuminor hasn't gotten paid yet either.
No, I don't.
If he gets money thrown at him, he's got to take it too.
No doubt, 100%. So that's where the balance comes in, where, as an organization, you have to make the decision of, we value the player, we love the player, what number are we comfortable paying that player? And then, okay, if that player then leaves, what's the game plan for replacing that player?
Absolutely. I'm with you. All right, 201-939-4513, 201-939-4513. Looking for more than just a ticket? Elevate Experiences delivers VIP access to the world's biggest events, from the Super Bowl to NASCAR to PGA Tour tournaments. Don't just attend, elevate the experience at elevateexperiences.com. Let's lead off with Scott in New Mexico. Scotty Doo, what's up, buddy?
Hi, guys. Liked your analysis. I'm always going to this time of the year very optimistic, and this year I'm going into the free agency and the draft rather pessimistic. And here's the reasons why. First of all, with Bobby Okereke, I don't think they should bring him back, and there's a reason why. His PFF grade for run defense was 45.5, and his tackling was 50.2. I know he had a good last month, but you have to play the whole year. Good against the pass, good in coverage. But what were the two real problems of the Giants? They couldn't stop the run, and they couldn't stop the pass when it counted. And so that's where I think the concentration has to be. Although I'm a Cornell Tate guy, I really think the defense really has to be addressed. So I want to ask about some players who are in free agency, ones that I took a look at.
Yeah, Scott, real quick, and I will let you finish, I promise. Just remember, with Okereke, if you let him go, we just talked about 3 potential holes with their own free agents, right? Then you have a gaping hole linebacker because Micah McFadden's a free agent as well. And the guys at the top of the market here, you look at what a lot of people project their contracts are going to be. I'm looking at the Devin Lloyds, the N'Kobe Deans, the Devin Bushes. They're going to make more money than what you would have to pay Okereke if he was here. So that's what you kind of have to figure out here. Is there a real upgrade out there? What that upgrade is going to cost versus what you're paying Bobby Okereke today? So that's the calculation they're going to have to make.
Well, I had a couple of players at that linebacker position, but I don't know if they fit the mold of that middle linebacker position. One was Quay Walker out of Green Bay.
Yeah.
And his missed tackle rate was below 8%, so he's not going to miss a lot of tackles, which is what you need. The other guy is Tremaine Edwards, and I don't know if they can afford him, but he was a stellar athlete, and he fits, I think the defense that John Harbaugh would like to have. So those two guys.
Well, that would have to be a trade. Tremaine Edmonds, you're talking about, the middle linebacker for the Bears?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's under contract. So that would have to be a trade.
Okay.
He's not a free agent, and I imagine the Bears would not part with him lightly, given he has a big contract, so maybe that might, bargain it out a little bit. I don't think Quay Walker is necessarily your green dot middle linebacker. He's more of a run and hit off-ball guy. I'm trying to remember who the Packers green dot guy was last year. I'll have to double-check that. I think they brought somebody in. I'll check that for you. But I don't think either one of those guys are necessarily Mike green dot leader of the defense guys. So you might have to, maybe you bring Mike McFadden and he ends up being that guy. I don't know the answer to that.
The one thing about Edmonds is the Bears have given him permission to seek a trade. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. But he's $15 million in salary cap space. I agree with your assessment about Quay Walker. Loved him at Georgia. Loved him when he's drafted.
Great athlete.
But yeah, no doubt, 100%, and a guy that can run all over the field. Edmonds would be interesting. But John ran through it in terms of Bobby Okereke, and I think you saw the uptick in terms of in his performance and his play after, and I don't think it's coincidental that it coincided with the Giants' change in defensive coordinator when they let go of Shane Bowen, and the run defense obviously improved as well, and Okereke started to play a lot better too. So, but that's an organizational decision, and if you do that and you do make that decision, then it presents another area of need. So you got to look at it into where you got to lay the balance out in terms of the financial output that Okereke is going to be getting. If you do move on from Bobby Okereke, then exactly how's the game plan to replace that production here moving forward, and how do we financially commit to that position to other guys that conceivably are going to get paid as well?
And Scott, by the way, I will do a mea culpa. Quay Walker last year did wear the green dot for the Packers, so he did play that role for them last year. Just FYI.
Okay. The other players I was interested in, then maybe you give me a heads up. There's a cornerback out of Chicago, Nation Wright. He's tall. He's a press corner. I think he's 6'4", and he's pretty good. And I'm really worried about whether they can retain Flott, because I think he's the central key in that defense. If they don't have a guy who can shut down people, I don't know where the Giants are going. So I wanted to get your opinion of him as a potential replacement. He's a free agent. And as far as receivers, I'm a big proponent, as I told you earlier, on getting Cornell Tate. If that doesn't work out, then they need to get another receiver. And they talked about it a little bit yesterday, about the potentiality of retaining Mike Evans, even if it's only for 2 years. Because I think with him and Malik Neighbors there, you have a tremendous tandem. So I wanted to get your opinion of that, whether Mike Evans might be a possibility. And if push comes to shove and Illuminor goes, if Marcus Bolt can really fill the void, because Van Roten, I'm not sure what the story is with him. So maybe you can, illuminate a little bit on whether Mike Evans is the right fit.
Well, I think you'd be a fit. Yeah, I mean, and thanks a lot for the call. I mean, I think you'd be a fit. I don't think there's any doubt. The concern and something that John and I talked about a couple minutes ago would be, is this the spot where he wants to play?
He's just like when the Giants interviewed John Harbaugh, he was interviewing them.
Right.
When Mike Evans shows up to these teams, he's interviewing the teams. It's not the other way around.
Right. This is not, Hopkins at the end of his career holding on for dear life. Like Mike Evans had a hamstring injury this year, also had a collarbone injury. Like Mike Evans can still play and can be really productive and is smart and savvy enough to where his game is not just predicated on speed, right? So it's speed, it's the size, it's the physicality, his ability to go out there and catch contested footballs. He's been an amazing red zone target as well. Runs great routes. There's nothing not to like. Mike Evans is going to be in a Hall of Fame, 5 years after his career is done, maybe 6, given the Hall of Fame voting and what we've seen now. But, you look at it, John, the question for Evans is, at this stage of his career, what is he, 11, 12 years into his NFL career, I believe, if you put the money aside and the financial commitment, do the Giants represent the winning situation in the here and now? Because he's on short term. He's looking to win in 2026. Yeah,
and I'm sure he wants to win another championship, right? He won one when he was there when Tom Brady won in Tampa. I'm sure he'd like to win another one. So while, again, I'm with Moose, I think it's a great fit for the Giants. Even
no doubt.
League neighbors, I think that's great. I don't know if that's going to be where Evans wants to go necessarily. And then you get to blow him out of the water with money, too. Like, Mike Evans, he's probably not going to be, like, over $25 million a year, super expensive because of his age. But
I think you presented a good landing spot for Mike Evans.
I like the Bills.
Yeah, the Bills are a good landing spot.
Maybe 49ers?
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, that's second wide out?
Yeah, second wide out. There's no doubt. I mean, Ayuk has been a disaster, and Lynch has mentioned that, Brandon Ayuk's going to be done out there in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So
hasn't happened yet, though. We're still waiting on it.
Still waiting on that. Ricky Pearsall, though, showed himself to be well. Kittle's now coming off the ruptured Achilles. You've got Purdy. You've got McCaffrey. Yeah, that's not a bad one out there in the Bay Area.
Chargers, maybe?
Chargers.
Chargers?
Yeah, McDaniel. Another thing to, another weapon to play with out there in Los Angeles. Keenan Allen had a little bit of revitalization this year.
He's a free agent. He's a free
Chargers.
agent. Yeah.
But I think that's more a case of being with Herbert and the Chargers than anything else. And Quentin Johnson, who had stone hands for the first part of his career, was a concern when he was getting drafted coming out of TCU. Quentin Johnson was significantly better this year.
He slowed down a little bit end of the year, but he had a nice year.
For the first 9-12 games, he had a really good start to his season.
Yeah, really good year. I'm with you on that. Maybe Denver? For Mike Evans, you want to put him across from Cortland Sutton? They could use a second receiver.
Now with Davis Webb calling plays out there in Denver. Yeah.
So I think there are options for him. We'll see what he does. I do think if Illuminor leaves, I think the calculation was, just as we've kind of talked through this and I'm thinking about it, I think if Illuminor doesn't come back, that's the signal that they feel good about Marcus Bolt at right tackle. Because I don't know where you're finding a better, more cost-efficient option where you're going to get the level of play he's going to give you.
Well, as they say, actions speak louder than words.
Right.
Right? So if Illuminor goes, and regardless of what everyone within the Giant organization is saying, and listen, Jermaine Illuminor has been a really good New York Giant, right? But if they decide that it's a little bit too rich for their blood, then yes, I would agree with you. In terms of like who they're most aggressive with when you're talking about those three players, shows you, because actions always speak louder than words, what the Giants place the most importance on, given the limitations or concern in terms of replacing that production in 26.
Which guy do you think it's going to be?
I think it's Robinson.
I think it's Illuminor.
You do?
I do.
You do. Okay. Well, let's have a little gentleman's bet on that.
And by the way,
do a little lunch.
It'll probably end up being flat.
Right. Well, we're all wrong.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly right.
We're all wrong.
Yeah, we can do a little lunch on that.
Yeah, do a little lunch on that. Yeah.
We can do that.
What happens if they're both back?
If they're both back, then I think Johnny Mac has to buy us both. I can bring Pearson here. He can do it too. I think did he one other position he asked us about? Scott, he was all over the place. I think we hit everything that he wanted to talk about. But if we didn't, Scott, I apologize. You can send it a note, and we'll get to it. Let's go to Rich in Florida. He's up next. Rich, what's happening?
Hey, a second-time caller, guys. Watch your program.
Thank you.
don't yell at me after this, okay? But I'm going to tell you who we have to draft number 5.
Who do we have to draft number 5? Because I hate that word. I hate the word have to. You know that.
I know. But it's 2 birds with 1 stone. And Scatterbo is going to. I don't wish anything on anybody. The way he runs, he might not play the whole season. We have to get Love, and the reason why is because we could draft him theoretically at a wide receiver position and still have backup as one of the best runners in the league. He is truly, as everyone is saying, one of the best athletes. But Harbaugh says we got to run it and we got to stop the run. And I don't think we could look past this guy Love from Notre Dame. What do you guys think?
Jeremiah Love's fantastic. He's probably going to be, when all is said and done, the highest graded player that I have.
A lot of smoke there from what Rich is saying.
That is.
In terms of coming out of the combine.
Lot of talk that the Giants are looking at the running back market in free agency. And Moose and I were having this conversation before we started about
no doubt.
The type of running back. And I think we kind of concluded that you'd probably looking for more of a big play guy to kind of complement Scatterbo, the grinder type. And I would rather, I think, try to attack that in free agency just because running backs, Moose, aren't that expensive. And I feel like, and while they're not going to be as good of a player as Jeremiah Love, you can get someone to complement Scatterbo. And this is the other part of it for me. If you draft Love at 5, right? Great player. You're drafting Love at 5 to play 85% of the snaps.
Yeah, you're not drafting him to be a complimentary guy.
No, not even to play 60% of the snaps, like a 60-40 split. He's not that good. He's a good receiver for a running.
How many touchdowns has he had?
Rich, you're not drafting a full-time running back and putting him at wide receiver with the 5th overall pick.
You're not doing that.
Yeah, but
you're not making that kind of projection.
I think they should.
All right, Rich.
Well, Rich, I get it. I understand it. I guess my whole thing would be for those, and nobody doesn't, Love is an unbelievable player, right? But it feels like we're going back to the cyclical conversation. Then Dave Gettleman was running the Giants when he drafted Saquon Barkley with the 2nd overall pick.
Don't give me PTSD.
And there was Giant fans that were up, and he was the cleanest player in the draft, right? And there's no doubt when you look at Love, and listen, you might make the argument, say, well, we're here to draft great players. He's the best player on our board. We're going to draft the best player that's on our board in Jeremiah Love and the one that we have the most confidence in. And if that ends up being the decision, like, you're not going to scream, he's an unbelievable football player.
No, he will immediately make the Giants a better football team.
There's no question. Mm-hmm. There's no question. But there's other areas where you say, is there great separation between Love and, say, Sonny Styles? Is there great separation between Love and Caleb Downs coming out of Ohio State? Like, is there that big of a separation between the two? Because you can have we were talking about Bobby Okereke with a caller a couple minutes ago. You lose him in free agency, you might be able to replace him with your 2nd overall draft choice. Or not in free agency, but if you make the decision to move on from Bobby Okereke this offseason, right, you might not go into the free agency market. You might say to yourself, well, we're going to be able to draft his replacement with a guy that we believe with the 2nd overall draft choice, which is on the table as well.
And look, Jeremiah Love's fantastic. He's really, really good. So would I be throwing things against the wall if they drafted Jeremiah Love? Absolutely not. He's a great player, and he'd help them win games. But I think in terms of maximizing the value of your assets, I would much rather go pay Travis Etienne $8 to $9 million a year than use the 5th overall pick on Jeremiah Love.
Yeah, and that's fair. And listen, no question about it. And then you get into, like, it's one thing to take Arvell Reese, the linebacker of Ohio State, and say, as he was meeting with the media, and he was saying, well, most teams are projecting me as an edge in the National Football League, right? And say, I'm going to use that as my projection, right? It's one thing to do that, then to have, as Rich mentioned, draft a running back and say, well, I'm going to convert him to wide receiver, or he's going to play a majority of the time in his rookie year as a wide receiver because we have Scatterbo. Like, that is, to me, a bridge way too far. Like, that's... So it's one thing to look at Jeremiah Love, and then you're not taking great use of his entire skill set as a running back and being a pure 3-down running back. And you're right, John. Here's the other thing is, if you draft Jeremiah Love 5th overall, then, what exactly then is going to be the game plan here for Cam Scatterbo? Because it's one thing then to run the football, but then aren't you minimizing? And I understand he's coming off a bad ankle injury and a grotesque one against the Philadelphia Eagles during the regular season. But then what's your game plan for Scatterbo in 26? How exactly do you make that running back room work to where, you're feeding them? And then all of a sudden, okay, well, we're feeding the running backs. Then I'm limiting my quarterback in Jackson Dart, who is they're begging you to throw the football in the National Football League. I get you want to run it, but I also have a second-year quarterback where I believe the sky's the limit in terms of what he potentially can be.
And if your wide receiver room and using the 5th pick on a running back, then you have to use that 2nd-round pick on something. Are you challenging teams enough in the passing game to make your running game effective?
Right.
You know how this is, Moose. You can have a really good running back. You don't know what the right side of the offensive line is going to look like. That's another conversation. But if teams are not respecting your pass game, and we'll see what Malik Neighbors' injury status is at the start of the year. Again, we don't know the answer to that right now. Are you going to even be able to run the ball effectively if teams are not respecting your passing game?
No doubt. 100%.
I mean, we saw that with Saquon here and Daniel Jones. Yeah. We literally live this.
Right, no doubt. And then all of a sudden, then it's like, all I need to do is I'm not in fear of the passing game. I got to stop the run. If I stop the run, I don't think the Giants are going to be able to march their way, or as Hank Stram once said, matriculate your way down the football field. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. So, yeah, John, I also have to look at it where, it is, and I'm not, calling it, it's information is out there for a reason. And sometimes when you look at a draft as well, and I don't think it's, just throw it out there where teams, all of a sudden reports come out that a particular team is in love with a player or whatever. It might be a kind of a lesson to where they're trying to get other teams the ability to move up to get that player.
Yeah, maybe the Giants want to trade down.
Right. So like that's something to look into as well, to where then all of a sudden you start to get some of the draft capital back that you lost when you moved up to go get Jackson Dart last year and move back into the first round. And you look at this and say, well, I look at the strength of this draft. I'm going to add, I don't feel like I'm going to lose that big of a quality of player if I move back. So there's other things that come into play too, because if we all know, and we're talking about, and John, you know this better than anybody, if we all look at Jeremiah Love and say, well, he's the cleanest player, like the conversation that we had 40 minutes ago is, how high is too high? Where do I know? If I'm the Kansas City Chiefs or I'm some other team, where do I need to get get the player that I absolutely love that can help my team in the here and now in Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame? That's the other way to look at it as well. I'm not saying that's exactly what's happening, but those are the thought processes, and that's the exercise you need to have as a fan.
Yeah, I think, at least for me, it would be a lot easier to make that argument at like between 7 and 12 than it would be at 5 or 6, just because you mentioned the guys. Is Down still there? Is Styles still there? Is Reese still there? Is Bailey still there?
Yeah.
And look, Giant fans might not like this. If somehow the first 3 non-quarterbacks taken are Reese, Downs, and Styles, let's just say, right? And David Bailey's sitting there. I know the Giants have a bunch of edge players, guys. I do. He's really good. He's really, really good.
Here's the other thing. You can never have enough.
No, you can't.
You can never have enough.
And then
I remember that NASCAR line the Giants rolled out in 2007. I mean, you can never have enough guys and go after get after the quarterback.
And remember, if you have excess at a position, then maybe you can then deal some of that excess for either another pick. Giants don't have a 3rd-round pick. Or maybe you trade them for a player at another position. The Jets just did that. They traded an edge player for a nose tackle. Right. They thought they needed a nose tackle in their system. The Titans thought they needed an edge player, so they swapped players. That's something you can do, too, if you get down to the brass tacks.
Yeah, and so that's where, and that's where you need to look at it from that aspect, too. And when we talked about it, we kicked off the conversation on this Tuesday looking at kind of, and John, you and Paul and everyone here did an amazing job covering the Combine last week and throughout the course of the week. But when you look at the strength of this draft, if you're looking at defense being the strength of this draft, especially early on in terms of the more impactful players, and you ran through them outside of Mendoza, the quarterback is an outlier, but when you talk about Reese and you talk about Sonny Styles and you're talking about Bailey and you're talking about Bain and you're talking about everyone that we've mentioned here, Caleb Downs, the big safety out of Ohio State as well. He's not big in stature, but he's a big time player. That's where if you're a team that, you're sitting there with the 5th overall pick, where you might just say to yourself, we're going to draft the best player, even though we don't have a glaring need, because he's going to help the competition in the room and he's going to make us that much more better and more dominant on that side of the ball.
Yeah, and look, this goes back to the
position on that side of the ball.
This goes back to the conversation we had about Tyler Linderbaum too, right? Where teams want to connect the dots. He played for John Harbaugh in Baltimore, and the argument I made there applies here. We just talked about how many spots and holes the Giants have to fill, right? Depending on what their own free agents are they bring back and all that stuff. And it's hard for me to use a premium asset on a position that I don't feel is a hole, right? Could you upgrade those positions? Sure, no argument. But are you in the position, if you're the Giants, to spend, I mean, let's be honest, the 5th overall pick is their best asset this offseason.
Yes.
Throw the money away, whatever. The 5th pick is the best asset. Can you afford to use that asset to fill a position, to upgrade a position that's already, I think,
pretty strong,
pretty good?
Yeah.
Rather than filling a position that's a problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's the juxtaposition an organization is in, where, you know, you're drafting on need or you're drafting the best player on the board, right? And you see in a lot of NFL teams, you talk to a lot of general managers where they say, you know, some of the biggest mistakes that they have made, especially when you're talking about day 1, day 2 draft choices, is drafting on need.
Yep.
And not drafting basically the best player on the board. And you let the board lead the way. And you might lose a tiebreaker, right? Like we talked about Carnell Tate, right? There might be a debate within a draft room. And, you know, it might, in the end, someone might say to themselves, I'm not drafting a receiver with who ran a 4.5, 4.40 if he doesn't improve that speed at his pro day. So you might lose one or here or there. But I think that's where you get yourself into trouble, John. You know, I've never run an NFL team, but you've seen it where teams reach for players because they need to address a glaring need. And that kind of brings us full circle back to the conversation we had before with free agency is you don't want to come out of free agency with glaring needs going, because that then will muddy your mindset going into the NFL draft.
Yeah, my thought process is that there should be somebody with a grade close enough to Jeremiah Love
right, exactly.
that he loses the tiebreaker because of need. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And it's a tiebreaker deal.
Yeah.
Now, in this draft class, it is very plausible that the Giants get to pick 5, and they have Jeremiah Love with the top 3 grade, and their next best player has like a grade that equates to more like the 15th or 16th pick. And if that's the case, I get it. I understand why they would go about and do that. But my guess is that you would have another player at a more valuable position that's more of a need with a similar enough grade that'll be on the board when the Giants pick at 5. Maybe that's not going to be the case, in which case you pick Love. I get it. That's fine.
It'll be.
But that's how I look at it.
Well, and we kind of project and go to draft night, right? Sitting there in the first round, that war room for the New York Giants, which is a couple floors above where we're broadcasting right now, right? So if you're sitting there and you go on the idea that Mendoza goes first overall, then it's Styles, Reese, and say for argument's sake, you want to say Caleb Downs, right? And you're sitting there and you have Bailey and Jeremiah Love.
And
Bain, right? For argument's sake. I would imagine that Giant war room will be active. There will be people calling the Giants to see what they'd be willing to move back because of Bailey being a really clean edge rusher, and Love, the more you hear, a lot of NFL teams look at Jeremiah Love as being the cleanest player in this NFL draft.
That, to me, would be the interesting one, because I think the 3 players that you mentioned, and I think this is why you did the hypothetical.
Yeah,
that's it. Good for you.
There's always a reason,
because you
John.
put me in a tough spot, Moose.
No, but
I like that. No, that's what you have to do. You have to war game the worst case scenario, right? And then figure out what you're going to do.
Right, worst case scenario, and that would obviously be where we've. Caleb Downs. I mean, John Harbaugh has talked about Caleb Downs before. Sonny Styles had an unbelievable combine, was really productive out at Ohio State. And then obviously, you look at Arvell Reese. And Reese was a guy that even going into this college football season for the Buckeyes was believed to be a top 2 player in this NFL draft. More of a projection as being an edge rusher, but physically gifted, right? And cut from a piece of granite, right? There's nothing not to look at Arvell Reese and doesn't think, even on game film, to look at that he's going to be a really productive NFL player. Then what do you do if you're the Giants, right? Because then all of a sudden you're sitting there and with the 5th overall pick, going on the idea that you don't have a glaring need at right tackle, you've got Love sitting there and you've got Bailey sitting there, but Bailey's a guy that all of a sudden that's a strength, right? I just spent the 3rd overall pick last year on Abdul Carter coming out of Penn State to be an edge rusher, and I got Brian Burns, Spider-Man, who's coming off a really good year.
And by the way, Reese is super similar to Carter in that they're both converted off-ball linebackers that are kind of hybrids too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
No doubt.
So they're very. You talk to Denard Wilson and you say, can you utilize both these guys on the field at the same time, or do their skill sets overlap too much? Like, that's a conversation you have to have at that point too.
No question.
So
I mean, that's
this is why it's fun. This is why football is awesome.
That's right, and that's what makes the draft process great too. Because you not only have to plan in a draft room for best case scenario. You also have to plan for worst case scenario.
Oh, playing for the best case scenario is easy.
Yeah,
that takes about 2 seconds.
All of a sudden, right? Oh, look, Sonny Styles is sitting there, or Caleb Downs is sitting there. Like, this is going to be great. And then you also have to look at the idea of what teams would be willing to move up, because there might be a team that is willing to move back, and a team willing to move up because they've pinpointed or targeted one player.
Yeah, Bailey, I think you have a chance at. I think you got a chance that a team might want to move up for Bailey. I think he's that good. That's the guy that if he gets there, I think you might have a chance a team want to move up.
And listen, he might be gone, and Caleb Downs might be sitting there.
That's true too. All right, we got it's like when you go to the restaurant, but it's like a smaller restaurant, and they like run out of the food.
Oh, it's terrible.
And you know what the menu is, right? So you go in. It's really easy. All right, well, if this is on the, if they have the lamb shank, I'm definitely getting the lamb shank. Well, but if they run out of that, all right, what's my plan B?
Yeah.
Oh, they're out of that. Oh man,
right. Then you're like,
not down to like
just get the spaghetti with red sauce and meatballs. That's it.
I'm down to the pasta section. That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Well, and you bring that up. I don't love the idea, and like it's not like I'm eating out all the time. But when you go in, they have the specials.
Yes.
And then they're sold out of one of the specials. So you're like, man, that must have been really, really good. That special must have been like off the charts, really, really good. Like I missed out on that special. Like that's it. Like oh my god.
Or you walk in
like,
and the guy
sea bass must have been amazing.
You walk in,
and it's like, and then you ask the waitress or waiter, like, how good was the sea bass? They're like, oh, ridiculous. I'm like, there's no more. No, we're sold out. We're done.
Especially when you walk in and they like. You see the plate being served to somebody, and
you're like, oh my, wow, look at that.
That looks pretty good. I'll have what that guy's having. I'm sorry, sir, that was our last one.
I'll go with the chicken parm.
Yes, correct.
Never fails.
Could I have the roasted chicken quarters, please? No? All right, we have some YouTube comments here, Moose. At 11 Amani, Wyatt Teller, isn't he a free agent? He is a free agent.
Yeah.
A little older, 31. Kind of got benched at the end of last year. He has kind of slid off a little bit the last 2 seasons, but if you're looking for a stopgap at right guard, depending on the cost, I think that's kind of what you're looking at in free agency if you don't want to spend a lot of money.
Yeah, then you got to look at the CBA, right? The cost-benefit analysis, right? What is he looking to get? Where is he at this stage of his career? And that's where the scouting needs to come into play in terms of what version of Wyatt Teller you're going to get.
All right, here we go. Same guy, at 11 Amani. I really like Moose. He's got a voice that doesn't let me tune out when he speaks.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Dude actually sounds excited to talk about the team.
Can you come home? My kids tune me out all the time.
And by the way, he's a loyal listener. So if he thinks you talk enthusiastic about the team, he's like comparing you to like Dottino.
Oh.
So the fact that if compared to Dottino, you sound enthusiastic.
There you go.
That's a pretty high bar.
Yeah,
gotta be honest.
Dottino's like enthusiastic ordering a coffee from Dunkin' Donuts.
At JCNY718, Moose and John are my favorite hosts. Wow, you are really curating these comments, Johnny Mac.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are some not very positive ones in there you did not put into the Google Doc.
No, I'm sure there are. I'll take all positive, all negative. That's what's on social media. It doesn't matter.
Bring it all in. I'm not even going to try. Jan Bogacki, 6134. I love Golden Bear Moose.
Wow. All my friends are out today. Checks in the mail.
How big of a family do you have?
Not big. I got one cousin who lives in Queens. That's it. Not a big family.
All right, let's go to the intro is so hard. I like that. I think hard's a compliment, right? Hard?
Yeah.
Is that good? I think that's good. All right. At CGC, Torag, Mendoza, Bailey, Reese, and Styles are going top 5. Who's the last guy? On talent, it's Love, but some teams won't take a running back that high. Downs maybe, though he has no special physical attributes. If those are the 3 guys off the board, Moose, where I stand right now, Bailey, Reese, and Styles are gone, I'm drafting Caleb Downs.
I would agree with that. And sometimes, like, we can get caught up, and this is where the balance comes in when you're looking at what transpired at the scouting combine or on pro days, and you got to let the game film lead the way. And Caleb Downs is a ridiculous football player.
Yeah, because he's not going to blow you out. Whenever he works out, he's not going to blow you
right,
away.
But then
who cares?
But then you watch him play, and you listen to guys that coached him, and listen to what Nick Saban talked about in terms of his football IQ and his ability to understand and decipher information quickly and always be in the right place to go out there and make plays. There are some times that are not there are guys that are really physically gifted that have no idea how to play football. And then there are other guys that are just great football players. And sometimes you don't necessarily need to overthink it. I agree with you. If Downs is sitting there with the 5th overall pick, that's who I'd go.
Especially at safety. You don't need what goes on between the ears makes you a great safety.
Right, that's it, and that's why these interview processes take place and the
they
tests
said
take place because
him and Styles were apparently the two best interviews for teams out at the combine, based on what I've heard. So
how about Sonny Styles' brother running like a 4.26 40
with the torn labrum?
I mean, that's insane. That is crazy.
His family. I mean, there was a picture somebody put up there that showed like the dad standing between the guys. Looks like Mr. Universe.
Oh, does he?
Yes. Now he's a former NFL player, he's a linebacker back in the day. But yeah, he's like right now, like he looks like Mr. Like he's like Terry,
was a good player.
like Terry Crews level of like jacked.
Yeah,
like that's what he looks like.
That's not the Malusis household.
No, or the Schmeelk household for that matter. No. Too many times going to the restaurant and ordering the pasta with meatballs is what the problem is there.
That's it. Stay away from the carbs.
Yes, correct. Not in the Schmeelk and Malusis household. It's all carbs all the time. At T-Top13, I pray to the football gods every night that Styles is there at 5. Would not mind that. And the best part about Styles, Moose, and I'll just say this real quick because we got to get through the rest of these.
Yeah.
Everyone I talked to loved him, and I loved him before he even tested.
Yeah.
That's the beauty part of it. The testing is the cherry on top there. It's not...
Well, it just solidifies it.
Correct.
I mean, that's it. So you're looking into it, and the way that NFL prospects are getting picked apart now, all over the place, right? The amount of work that is being done by NFL teams. But what you saw on game film, now he just solidifies it with the athletic display that he puts on. That's really what the last 4 or 5 days out in Indianapolis was about. Outside of the one-on-one interviews that they did with teams, was NFL teams want to draft great athletes, right? Speed kills, and so Sonny Styles put on an athletic show, and that just legitimizes him more as being a top 5 pick and maybe second overall.
D. Goodman, True Blue, I consider the Penn State guard, Vega Ioane, at 5. That's the top 4. I think he could be the best offensive lineman in the class. I think he's not quite a Quentin Nelson level prospect for me. I think that's a little rich, but he's a good player.
Yeah, good player. And there are a lot of reports that the Giants, amongst other teams, are really, really intrigued with him. That'd be a little early to be drafting a guard.
Jambo Bagaki again. Why is everyone talking about a running back now? We getting Sonny 100%. Well, 4 teams ahead of you might have something to say about that, Jen. Scotty Young 1669. I don't understand all the rumors about the Giants. They're really looking for a top running back in free agency or in the draft. I think it's all smokescreen. Moose mentioned that before. Very possible. We'll see. At Ryan Roon, I feel like if we can't really upgrade on those guys that the Giants have in free agency, I'm assuming he's talking about, so why not try to pay them? Ryan, I think they will. The problem is you have something called the salary cap that you have to manage your roster building. So,
yeah, and you got a lot of teams in the NFL and then some that are really, really desperate that would be willing to overpay, and you can't pay everybody in today's day and age. Here's where the Giants are that other teams are not, where you've got your starting quarterback on his rookie deal.
Yep.
So it makes their job, it makes Joe Shane and company, their job a little bit easier given the limitations of the salary cap.
100%.
Because once you pay those guys, obviously you can't pay everybody.
Ryan, letting Wandell go doesn't make the team better. It takes a hole and makes it bigger. Yeah, it does. But again, you got to see what the cost is there. Ryan again. Scadaboo ran faster than Tate, and people balked at his speed. I forgot about that. I think Scadaboo did go a little.
Did he? I thought he ran a 4.6. Did he run faster? Maybe he did. Maybe.
Well, I'm going to trust the terrible Google AI thing here and see what that tells me in terms of what Scadaboo ran. Yeah, you're right. 4.57. Or 4.65, depending on what you look at. So, yes.
A little bit slower.
I thought he was slower.
I thought Tate was going to run faster.
I thought he would too. I thought he was going to be like 4.46, 4.47.
Yeah, I thought he was.
Which would have been fun.
And he ran the same time back-to-back 40s.
Yeah, he did. So, again, a lot of that's technique, and I think his play speed is faster than that, but the numbers are what the numbers are. Moose, good stuff, my friend.
John, I love you, man.
The Golden Bear voice.
The Golden Bear voice. Look at that.
I guess bears have good voices.
A little love on social media today. Thank you, Johnny. Appreciate that.
Did Jack Nicholson have a great voice? Is that where that's going?
No, I don't think so. It was a little squeaky. A little squeaky.
So maybe not a compliment.
No, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe that's true, too. You're right about that. Maybe it's a kick in the rear end. Thanks, John. Appreciate that. Love seeing you.
Always happy to send you out with a foot in the rear end, Moose. That's Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants. From the Hackensack Radio Podcast studio, keep getting better. We'll see you next time, everybody.